Good morning. My name's Andrea from Sugar Research Australia, and I'd like to welcome you to our milling webinar. Today we're joined by Meredith Godat and Jeff Kent from QUT, and they'll be presenting on the topic of a new approach to traffic officer training. We'd like to encourage you to take an active part in today's webinar, and you can do this by typing questions or comments into the chat area. You can ask questions at any time throughout the webinar, and if they're relevant to what's being presented at the time, we can interrupt and answer the questions, and otherwise at the end of the presentation we'll go through all of your questions. If you have any issues, then any technical issues, then please type the issue into the chat box, and someone from Redback Conferencing will be able to help you with that. You can also dial the 1800 number that you see on your screen. You'll see it in the chat box, and that way you can also get some technical assistance. So I hope you enjoy the webinar today. Please, we want it to be interactive. Ask as many questions as you like, and I'll hand over to Jeff, and I think Meredith will be starting off today. Thank you.
Well, good morning. To start off this particular webinar, I guess many of you in the audience have heard a lot about this particular training program before, and so we are not going to talk in great detail about the history of the project. I guess the key point is to say that this project has been all about developing a structured training program for traffic officers. And to give you a very brief history of that development, Meredith has prepared a video that should give you a bit of a reminder as to the process we've been through. So Gavin, up there it is.
Play the sound. Play the sound. Oh my God. They're not doing anything that they're supposed to be doing. She's like, sound doesn't work in the video, so she was going to play the sound while I play the video. Well, we're 44 minutes in, 44 seconds in. So let's play the fucking sound. He told her he was going to take it down last night. He said he told her he was taking the materials down last night. After the show? Yeah, she said, if you bring it tonight, I can do it and have it ready in the daytime. Yeah, let's read that. This is so embarrassing. It's a 3.5 minute video with no sound. Awkward silence. It's okay, I'm doing this customer. What?
Okay, so there's, I guess, a very brief history of the development of the TO Train program. I guess a couple of key points out of that is, firstly, it was designed to be a comprehensive program. So ideally, it was designed to provide all of the skills necessary, or the great majority of the skills necessary, to become a traffic officer. It involved collaboration with representatives from every traffic office in the industry, and we chose each of the modules has been developed in conjunction with particular subject matter experts from within the industry, and through our traffic officer workshop program, one per year, each of the modules that have been developed has been developed in conjunction with a representative group from across the industry. So each one of these does have a fair amount of general application across the industry. You can see on this particular slide the list of the modules that we have developed. There are 12 in total, numbered from 1 to 15. And the modules have been divided into 3 main categories. And you'll see the stream column on the right. The T stands for technical module, of which we have 6. The most basic is the Cane Rail Operation Essentials module, which describes the basic layout of the track network and how operations work on the network. Sugar Mill Business is about the interaction of the traffic office with the rest of the business and outside the business. Train separation is largely about safety. Ledger creation and adjustment is about the scheduling operations, and needs to be done on a day-to-day basis to ensure all is the schedule is in shape. Bid allocation is fairly obvious. And the last technical module, number 15 down the bottom, traffic plan and schedule, is about the pre-season planning. We then have 3 supervision and management modules, of which you can see there supervision and leadership, contractor and staff relationships, and risk management and emergencies. And finally, 3 general modules, communication and reporting, improving workplace practices, and stress and fatigue management. I'll now hand over to Meredith.
Hello everyone, and glad to see familiar names, and I can just imagine your faces from my end. So anyway, we, like we said, we've had a number of years now developing the TO Train modules, and we all know, or we do expect, that there are certain things that make a good training program. And so what we thought we might do is to get your ideas or your opinions on what you think a good training program might be, because Jeff and I didn't want to be the one talking here and doing all the talking. So what we thought, we'd let you participate, and we would like to ask each one of you to just answer this poll. So if you just tick on every item that you think is relevant or you think is important for you. So you choose one or more or all of any of the purpose and functions below that you think would be characteristic of a good training program. Okay, so we've got 50%. For the first one, it's increasing. Ooh, number one is getting to 75, 60. Number two is now 80. Okay. Proficiency check, assessment. Okay, still moving, still moving. Aha, so 1 and 2 are now getting up to the same. Now it's up to 4. 4's in the running. I'm like a horse jockey here, am I? Okay. Excellent. All right, so I think we've got everyone's votes in. And what we can see here in terms of purpose and function, you all consider pretty much all of these items: support in the development of a traffic officer training program, resources to be modular and developed, allow flexibility and integration into existing programs. Then we've got review and refresher workshops as being of the same level of importance to you, and proficiency check and assessment and sign-off prior to commissioning new traffic officers on the job. Excellent. So I guess of all this list, it's teamwork and other generic skills to be explicit in learning tasks don't rate as high as the other 4. Excellent. That's great. Okay, let's move on to the next poll then, and let's see what we think in terms of a good training program, in terms of approach and strategy. Again, let's look at your votes on that. Oh, that was quick. Ah, okay, that's 1. Allows for a mix of online and face-to-face training, coaching and mentoring. Okay. So the highest so far, oh, it's still going. Okay. Competency-based work, relevant, industry relevance, contextualization. Problem-based learning is rating very highly as well, followed by coaching and mentoring approaches to be integrated into the training program. Okay, mix of online and face-to-face training. Okay, now that's rather interesting because the TEOtrain resources are really designed for face-to-face. So whether that's an indication of your desire or interest to start doing online training, that is probably something for discussion. And, oh, okay, now, competency-based, that's very high at 88%. And focusing on activating theory and concepts from a practical approach. Okay, so that's at 33%. Excellent. Shall we move on to the third poll then? And this time, what we'd like to do is have a look at your opinion in terms of the resources and technology that we use for a training program. Okay, so Still going. I think it's taking a while for it to cross the Pacific to get the data over to me. Okay. Use of real data and information from industry, followed by strong real industry input in development and delivery. Fieldwork exercises, case studies and simulation. It's on par with learning activity resources or specimens of what is used in the workplace. Training resources are standalone and allow for basic, medium, and advanced training. Okay, now that's at 22%, so that's rather low. Okay. And availability of learning and supportive technologies such as learning apps, collaborative and decision support tools. Okay. Excellent. All right, well, thank you for that, everyone. Thank you for your input on that. Now, those 3 polls are the key characteristics that actually characterize the TO Train modules and resources that you have developed. And as you can see, it's the polls show that you've rated pretty much every item quite highly, except, I suppose, for the use of apps and the technology aspect of it. And I think what is of interest is in the poll that we find out now is how there's probably a greater interest in the online aspect of it compared to before. But like I said, those key characteristics are what we reported as how we would describe, or what the key features of the TO Train modules are. So, so I think, if anything, that indicates that we're more or less on the right track as far as the direction we took in the development of the TO Train modules. Okay, so we can move on to the next slide now. Okay, now when we started to develop the TO Train modules, and this is in the very first year, where we wanted to stage the training of traffic officers, and we defined those stages. One as pre-practicum, which is training required before sitting in the traffic officer chair. The traffic officer practicum 1, which is training required during initial periods of duties, but on the job there's limited duties with full supervision. Compared to traffic officer practicum 2, there's training required as well before full duties and no direct supervision on the job. And then the final stage, which is the pre-qualification stage, is the training required before full traffic officer qualification is awarded. Okay, so perhaps some of you might recall, I see some names on the list, like Greg was there in the early days when we were defining the curriculum for the traffic officer training program. Well, there's also John that I can see that was in the discussion when these stages were defined. Okay, so let's then move on to the next one. So then, how did we see these stages in terms of the traffic officer module? So at that time, we said, or you said that for stage 1, certain modules would need, for certain stages, specific modules would need to be completed. Or these are the required modules or levels of competency that they should be acquiring. So let's say, for example, we have cane rail operation essentials. That's definitely required in stage 1. Even though, if you recall, we first developed the train separation module first, and cane rail operations came a bit later. But in terms of how we defined the required modules for each of the stages, this is what we did. So again, if we take, for example, stage 3, we see that ledger creation and adjustment, bin allocation, stress and fatigue management are required modules in order to have somebody be able to do practicum 2 and with minimal supervision on the job. And for stage 4, which as we would expect, most of the modules are required at this stage. Okay? All right, so that's pretty much a little bit of the history. Now then, if you recall last or the workshop this year, we actually run an evaluation survey. And we have now analyzed that data as well as the focus group data. So this first set of evaluation, which is April 2014, have now been completed. The evaluation program that we plan to conduct will extend from 2015 up to 2016. 2015 and 2016 will both have a survey and focus group. So what's happening, if I go back to the previous slide, we're basically using the 2014 data as our baseline data, and then see what happens to skills and competencies in 2015 and in 2016. Now, the last workshop that we had, you've decided basically that we will have at least the mills would have run 1 or 2 of the modules into their training program. So we will be seeing the I guess the adoption of the modules over the next 2 years, and seeing how such adoption basically improves skills and competencies in the workplace, in the traffic office, that is. Okay, so that's the evaluation program. That's what we plan to do. At this point, I just want to ask and make sure that if Jeff has got any other input before I continue.
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Okay, moving on. So, what did we find out in 2014 with the survey and the focus group? So what we found was that the skills and competencies that were tested when traffic officers filled out the evaluation form or survey during the workshop, there were two of the lowest skills or competencies was in leadership and fitness for work, stress, and fatigue management. So basically what we were finding was that only 1/3, all right, 1/3 of leadership and supervision, that's 33%, and fitness for work, stress, and fatigue management, that's 30%, had only average competency versus what the respondents to the survey felt was highly important. So as you can see, there's quite a difference between 33% and 61% when it came to leadership and supervision skills. And then fitness for work, stress, and fatigue management had an average level of competency versus what participants felt was very important at 54%. So in other words, there were basically all the participants felt that the level of competency was less than the perception of importance. Okay, so these are just the key findings. We also looked at how participants or traffic officers validated their skills. And self-assessment was rated at 42%. And Whether this value means anything will really depend on how self-assessment is actually done. What does this mean? Is it self-assessment and saying, yeah, I think I've got this set of skills, and then and I'm assessing myself at this level. So whether that's the way you do it, or is there an instrument that you actually use in the mills to do it? So that's something that needs further exploration before we can actually find value for the 42%. What the 42% actually means. And then supervisor in the workplace is obviously the most popular one at 72%. And other means of assessment, which is at 6%, and that might be through TAFE courses or some other system that you might have at the mills. Okay, so I guess what is of interest really in the end is this relationship between the level of confidence versus perceived importance of the skill. And the relationship between the two, the lowest relationship, which is indicated on the rightmost corner here, indicates that this 6 competencies are the ones that rate the lowest and indicates need for further training. Okay, so I think this is probably what is the most important, and we'll probably need to think about how we might begin to address these skills and the lack of competency for it. Even if you feel that it's so important, and yet you feel that you have the lowest level of competency. Okay, so that's worth a good discussion. Then we look at the ones with the highest level of competency, which has a good relationship with the perceived performance. And as you can see, a lot of these are actually, so most of it, 4 items, are quite technical competencies, so which is good. But it's also good to know that we've got workplace practice, teamwork, and working independently as actually rating quite highly, as having a one-to-one relationship between competence and importance. So that's very good to know as well. Right, so then knowing all of this then, how do we then begin to look at the TO-Train modules and the training activities and the training resources that we've provided? How do we then, or you might ask yourself, well, how do we then begin to use it? Okay, so what we've done is we've developed a competency checklist. So what does this do? So the competency checklist will allow you to have a look at each of the modules, and under each module are all the competencies and learning outcomes associated with each of the modules. Then there are tick boxes against each of these, so that when you have a trainee, you can then assess and say, okay, here's a probably a fireman that decides to work as a traffic officer and may have skills already in let's say risk management. So you might want to tick that off, and so then perhaps just a review of risk management might be what's required. And you can go on and then use the other topics or other parts of the module that will be relevant. So what the checklist will allow you to do is just look at the gaps and then decide on which topics and modules you're going to be using. So this competency checklist is available for download. If you look at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which is called Documents, you can download that document right now and start using it for your meals. So it is a training aid. so that you have at least a starting point and to be able to decide which of the modules and topics you would like for stages, for trainees that are going to be doing stage 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, so that's in a nutshell where we're at, and I will hand over again to Jeff. So please feel free to write down all your questions, okay?
Okay, thanks Meredith. So access to the TO Train resources. We have set all of these resources up within the QUT Blackboard learning environment, which you can see one of the web pages on the screen right now. When you go into the list of modules, you will see down the left-hand side the list of modules, and then next to each module you will see 2 links. First one of those is called Trainee Resources. So this is the information that the student, the trainee traffic officer will need to have access to undertake the learning. The other column is Trainer Resources. So this is a training guide which is designed for the senior traffic officer, the trainer traffic officer, to provide some additional guidance on what needs to be done to train the traffic officer. So that in a nutshell is what we have in Blackboard, and that's there for all of the modules that we've talked about. Access to Blackboard, as an internal student here at QUT, it's really easy, but unfortunately it's a little bit more complicated for those of you who are not members of the QUT community. We do have a process, and many of you have already been through that process. The process starts with a request for user access, which happens essentially means contacting our admin officer Johanna Dorr at the email address ctcbinquiries@qut.edu.au. For those of you who haven't done that, the syndicated project report, which we have on this project, has those details inside it, and you could always speak to either Dave Green or myself if necessary to sort that out. The process then involves the creation of a username and password for access into our systems. And once you have that username and password, we can then register you for using the TO Train resources, which will then allow you to get into the Blackboard website. The procedures for support and maintenance are not yet in place, but we have, I guess, a verbal agreement that each mill will pay an annual fee of $1,000 per year, which I guess is an annual fee. And the purpose of that is to, I guess, fund the work that we need to do in supporting you in the use of those modules, and also dealing with any issues that come up, like, for example, parts of the program which either don't work well or have already lost their relevancy or aren't quite generic enough. So we need to have the ability to make the updates to the system as required. Now, in this first year, we really don't know how much this support's going to cost, because it's largely in response to whatever is thrown up at us. So the idea is that $1,000 a mill is a nice round number for the first year, and based on the amount it actually costs to support, we will then modify that in the coming years. So my intention is that we will make the arrangements for this first fee before the end of the year, and we will continue on from there. Meredith is going to be setting up very soon the discussion forum within Blackboard, which is going to be the main mechanism for proposing changes. Now, we talked about these changes, or this process I should say, at the Traffic Officers Workshop early this year, and the basic concept was that there would be a panel of traffic officers who would assess changes or requests to change, and the panel would consist of one representative from each milling company. That panel hasn't really been set up in any formal way yet. And the idea then is that if someone requests a change, it needs to be assessed first of all if it is generally applicable, and if so, then we will then go through the process of making those changes to the modules themselves. So that's really all we have to talk about today. Firstly, acknowledgements to everybody who helped fund the project, which is originally SRDC and then SRA to finish off, and also the Syndicate of Mills, which is almost all the mills in the industry with railways. A particularly big thank you to all the support we got from transport staff throughout the industry in, I guess, developing the program in the first place, providing the subject matter experts to develop the content, and through the support for the workshops, which has provided us with a great vehicle for ensuring that the content is suitable for all mills. So that's it. Thanks very much. Meredith and I will be here for a bit longer to answer any questions that you may have.